You're on, Jim.
Yeah, hold on. Good evening. Welcome to Cornerstone Home Inspection Education Center. Tonight we have a guide to chimneys and fireplace inspections. I'm going to turn it over to Stan Podjerski, and he will run our webinar tonight.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for attending. We're going to do a comprehensive guide to chimney and fireplace inspections. Basically, what you would do if you were doing a home inspection, even though a lot of the information in this webinar is based on what a chimney sweep would advise you to look at or what they would do themselves. So you can pick and choose how far you want to go with any of this based on how you do your home inspections. A lot of it probably, well, I've been reviewing a lot of standards now for the states that are represented in our organization and also licensed states. And a lot of it is very vague on what to inspect for chimneys and fireplaces. They're either located in the roof section, the chimneys are, and the heat, and then the fireplaces a lot of times are in the heat and in the interior. And at least with the states represented with Cornerstone, there's only 2 states that tell you that you have to describe, actually tell you to describe the materials used for the chimneys. Today, we're going to be talking about basically masonry, chimneys, and fireplaces. We'll explore the essential steps and techniques to perform thorough masonry, chimney, and fireplace inspections. And from a safety consideration to identify common issues, this presentation will equip you with the knowledge to do a proper inspection. So it always takes a home buyer to bring me back to reality. This wasn't very recent, but it happens occasionally. But during a home inspection, I'll be talking to the buyers, a young couple, about the condition of the chimney of the home. It's usually the wife that looks at me and says, "Why is there a chimney? This home doesn't have a fireplace." So I think we have to always remember that our people, we're educators. We have to educate the people that are buying a home. They don't always know what things are for, and this is kind of an important component. So we have to let them know that as long as you have some kind of fuel burning heating system, you're going to have a chimney. And we should never take for granted what buyers know or don't know. So this is a very important component that they really need to know about. So the definition of a chimney is a vertical structure that is incorporated into a building and encloses a flue or flues that carry off smoke, gases, or steam from a fire, furnace, or boiler. It is usually made of brick, masonry, or steel. The chimney extends above the roof line of the building and is designed to create a draft that helps to draw smoke and other gases out of the house. That draft is pretty much instantaneous because of the temperature differences, but the chimney definitely encourages, if built properly, for that smoke to get out of the house. Chimney and fireplace inspections are crucial for several reasons, primarily centered around ensuring the safety, functionality, and efficiency of their essential components. So fire safety, chimneys and fireplaces are prone to the buildup of creosote, highly flammable substance that can lead to chimney fires if not regularly removed. So as we're inspecting, we can look up the chimneys as best we can and determine if there is, especially with fireplaces, any creosote that may be in there. And if folks that are buying a house have never had a fireplace before, that's something that we can pass on to them so that they know how to begin to maintain that fireplace. Carbon monoxide detection. If there's a malfunction in the chimney, we're not getting that smoke out of that house. The flue gas also contains carbon monoxide, and especially, well, with all the devices that are connected to a chimney, that could be very dangerous. So we need to do the best we can to make sure that those are functional chimneys. You might not be able to see up or down all the way, but if there's what you can see looks remotely like it could be a problem, then you pass it on in your report and have some recommend that somebody come out and take a look at it. Structural integrity. So the chimneys, especially older ones, can deteriorate. In my opinion, in the years that I've been doing this, it's one of the most neglected components of a home because most people don't really, like that gal, don't even know what the chimney's for. If they don't have a fireplace, they may not even know they have a chimney. Um, they don't pay attention to it. If you ask one of your buyers after you get in the house what kind of chimney you have, or even what color your roof is, they probably don't even know. They just assume they have one. So it's out of sight, out of mind for the most part, and it really needs to be taken care of. And if minor deterioration, if you catch it early, right, we're going to get it in time, fix it up, and it'll last for a lot longer. But if it gets out of hand, it's going to be a safety issue and a structural issue. So inspections help identify any structural weaknesses such as cracks, crumbling masonry, ensuring the stability of the chimney, and preventing potential hazards. Preventing water damage. So water is the enemy of the house in many different ways. It's also the enemy of the chimney. Once these cracks develop or the mortar joints start to wear out and water's getting into the structure, then all that damage is going to become worse. And the water can get into the house and lead to mold, mildew, and other waste-related issues. Regular inspection can detect early signs of water damage, allowing for timely repairs and preventing costly water-related repairs in the future. Energy efficiency, a well-maintained chimney and fireplace contribute to the overall energy efficiency of the home. Inspections can help identify inefficiencies, blockages, or leakage that may result in heat loss or increasing energy consumption, allowing homeowners to make necessary adjustments and save on energy costs. And then compliance with regulations. So, I mean, in a way that we're not there to do a code inspection, but if we call out a safety issue, it's probably a good chance that it's a code issue as well. So we kind of keep an eye on that kind of stuff. Regular inspections ensure that these structures meet required safety standards, helping homeowners avoid potential legal issues and ensure compliance with local building codes. I'm not sure I agree with that 100%, but overall, chimneys and fireplace inspections are essential for maintaining a safe and functional home environment, preventing potential hazards, extending lifespan of these crucial components. Regular inspections contribute to overall peace of mind, well-being of the homeowners and their families and the home inspectors. You want to sleep well at night. Different types of chimneys and fireplace inspections. Um, Masonry chimneys, traditional chimneys constructed with brick, concrete block, or stone, known for their durability, strength, often lasting for decades with proper maintenance. Regular inspections are crucial in identifying signs of deterioration. And once you take care of that, then you're ensuring some longevity there. Metal chimneys. These chimneys are typically made of stainless steel or other durable metals. They're often used in conjunction with wood stoves, furnaces, and other heating appliances. We're going to focus on inspecting for corrosion, rust, and any structural damage that may compromise their integrity. Prefabricated chimneys, also known as factory built or zero clearance chimneys, manufactured off-site, assembled on location, commonly used in newer homes as an alternative options for traditional masonry chimneys. When we inspect those, when we're looking at those, we're going to check the integrity of the components, such as the flue pipe, insulation, and outer casing. Some chimneys may be constructed using alternative materials such as concrete, ceramic, or other specialized components. I don't see much of that myself. Inspections of these types of chimneys may vary depending on specific materials and construction technique used. So those are basically what we're going to see on a regular basis, except for that last paragraph there. So a lot of times people get some of these components mixed up. The chimney is a structure, the brick structure, and the flue is the opening. Right, so you can have a chimney with the flue and no liner, right? We're supposed to, well, we should be calling those out. And the flue liner is the productive layer inside the flue that enhances the chimney's safety and performance. So when you have no liner, this is very coarse in here. And it could put a drag on the flue gas as they're leaving. So most chimney liners are a smoother surface and help get that smoke out of the house.
Hey, Stan, can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
So what is your opinion, your 35 years? I know what I do when you go into, an 1850s home, it's got 6 fireplaces, you're looking up a stone chimney, just a chase, there's no flue liners. And the, owners go, well, it's been that way for 250 years and it's fine. And then we're saying to them, you know what? You need to have liners in this, but there may be only so much room for those liners. How do you handle that?
So you mean we had multiple fireplaces going into one big chimney?
Yeah. So I did a house one time in East Hampton, and it had literally 5 fireplaces, and they built the house around the chimney.
Right.
And it was just stone all the way up. You could literally in the living room just walk in to the fireplace and look up, and you see all these, there's no flues. You see all these chases going up. I called it out and I said, I want a chimney guy come out. This is, can be a fire hazard. Today's modern chimneys have flues. These can be retrofitted with metal flues or, however you decide to do it. But because of the size of the flues and the combustion that's needed, you may only, for the heating system or whatever, you may only have enough room for 4. You might have to lose a fireplace.
Well,
and what would your comment be to somebody that says, it's been fine for 200 years. Why do we need to put flues in?
That's the way fireplaces were built and used for forever. But now we know better. And I would want a professional to determine if all those fireplaces can be used by putting flues in there. I mean, they put those inflatable bags in there and they drop in the slurry to create the chambers, the flues.
Yeah.
They can only get 4 and they got to give up 1. But that's not our call, but we'd have to be, we'd have to push for that. And first of all, I really wouldn't want to be talking to the homeowner. I want to talk to the buyer about that. So did you mean you were talking to the buyer or the homeowner?
Yeah, to the buyer.
Yeah.
I actually had a homeowner there too telling me I was wrong, but I told him it doesn't matter. What I'm going to recommend to my client is evaluation by a chimney company, but for safety, these would need flues now.
And I would do the same.
Okay.
And then if they want to use it without that, that's on them. But if they have any kind of issue with that, any kind of fire, any health or safety issue, I am sure their insurance is not going to kick in on any of that. So, I use that as a push to get certain things done as well.
Right. I had it explained to me one time is that I think it was at some continuing education is that when we used to drive cars, they didn't have seat belts. And you can drive a car now without a seatbelt if it's an old car, but you can't put a baby seat in it and, it wouldn't pass any kind of inspection today and you're not safe. So you want to upgrade those cars with newer seatbelts, same kind of deal.
To be safer, correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And
sorry.
that's the way it is from 1800s to 1900s to now.
Right.
We didn't know what we know now back then. So
exactly.
We have to modify. Inside here is a smoke shelf, just to clarify. And this kind of gets a little turbulence going to push that flue gas up there as well. So that's why this damper should never fall back into that. It should be perpendicular and not laying back in here because that can affect that smoke shelf. Of course, the front of the fireplace is called the mantle and the hearth. How many guys check to see how deep this hearth is? Around here, it's about 18 inches. Anything shorter, and I call that out as a potential safety hazard. They need to be very careful when they're tending to fire. And then we do have the damper, and that should be functional, not to have a fire, but to keep the heat in the house when you're not using the fireplace. So If this has failed, a lot of times you'll find that there wasn't a cap on a chimney. Rain poured in, rusted this whole assembly. This is an integral part of the fireplace. You can't replace it. So where does that damper go? Up here with a pull chain and a counterweight. And then we have a cap and a crown. And we're going to get into this crown and cap thing a little bit more in the second half of this webinar. And of course, flashing, very important to keep the water out. This is the roof line here.
Stan, before you get to that room line, can I, and it's just me, everybody can inspect the chimneys. Some guys will just disclaim it, however you do it, that's yours. But for me, from what I've learned from some really good chimney guys, is you look where the throat is. Yeah, I look up. I'll stick my head in there and do exactly what Stan said. I'll check the damper. There's leaves. Sometimes you open up, everything falls down. But what I always look for in this smoke chamber, sometimes you look, that's supposed to be, and I say every chimney I've ever looked at, there's always something. Some are actually surprisingly better than others. But this smoke chamber area, that should be all smooth. A lot of times I'll look up there and you'll see the gap between the flue liner. You'll see all gaps around that. And then you'll notice the bricks. That is really not a safe chimney. And I call that out. Now, a lot of people don't do it. I'll look up if I see just all the bricks and I see gaps and I can see the flue liner. There's a gap behind it, that spot for soot to build up, and that can create a fire hazard. So I'll look up to see if there's any obstruction. Sometimes you can't, the way the flue runs and everything. But that's just something I do. And I would say most of the time I'll find problems. I'll also find the lintel over here. Stan, you got your little thing. I'll see gaps in between there. And those are those are some of the things that I point out. And again, I think we had this conversation before, Stan, is that when I find one or two things, then obviously I'm going to recommend having somebody come in, qualified chimney contractor, not always a sweep, some sweeps just clean. Then you got contractors that'll rebuild. They'll go up there and they'll repoint and they'll put that specialized mortar up inside that smoke chamber to smooth that out and make it safe to burn. And again, going back to what Jim says, it's been like that forever. And maybe they've gotten lucky, but there's a lot of house fires that occur as a result of faulty chimneys. So, pointing that out, that's something I do. And again, with the hearth and all the other stuff. The other thing too is the fire bricks too, Stan, right? Issues with fire bricks, the ash, there's a pit there, the dump, sometimes that's busted. That's not huge stuff, but I always mention that too. And a lot of these bricks, some of them are all the mortar in between the bricks has failed. And sometimes there's those combination ones, right, where the metal, and you'll see, the metal has actually started to rust and pull away and stuff. So I've seen a lot of different stuff too, but we're not doing a full chimney inspection, but we'll at least point some of that stuff out.
But if things are visible, I would bring them to the attention and report on them. So as long as we have this cross section, it's not I don't think we have a better picture of a corbel chimney. Does anybody know what corbelling means?
Yeah,
it's like extending a brick a little bit farther over another brick, almost like a upside down stairway until you get to the point where you want to be. If you look up, and especially in older chimneys, and you look up into the throat of the fireplace and you see that stepping of the chimneys, of the brick, today, all that's supposed to be parged. All right. Because creosote can get into the nooks and crannies of all those stepped bricks. And of course that's flammable. So when I see that in an older chimney, and again, it's that, 100 years old, it's been fine, I will make a recommendation in my report to make the chimney work, to make the chimney be safer, that they should consider having somebody come in and parge that. Just put that nice smooth coating in to minimize concern for creosote buildup and also to get the smoke out of the fireplace. So there's ways to bridge that age gap by saying make things safer, work better, even though they've been functional for all that time. Right. And like Scott said, sometimes you're on a wing and a prayer. The next fire could be the one, that you build. So I don't think we have a picture of the corbel, but that's kind of how I handle that. And then we're going to get into cap and crown later on in the presentation. So things that you may see that you want to bring to people's attention: creosote buildup, right? Creosote is usually the shinier of what you see in there. If you have any doubt at all, just call out, I would say, to have the chimney cleaned. You know, just because we make recommendations, especially in today's market, doesn't mean any of that's going to get done or be negotiated. But our job doesn't change. We still have to report on all this. And that's the only protection we have, especially now if people get pushed through the process without being able to negotiate. That report, they're so happy they get the house, that report gets filed away or closed on their phone. And the next time they look at it is when they've had a problem. They want to see if we addressed it or not. So we still need to call this stuff out. The buildup of creosote obviously leads to chimney fires. It could cause extensive damage to the chimney and the rest of the house. Blockages, if we can see a blockage, that'd be great, but sometimes we can't always see up the chimney all the way or down. When I have the opportunity, especially in a heating system chimney, if the base of that chimney is clean, I'll stick my flashlight up to light the chimney up, and then I'll put my camera in there and I'll take a picture. And 8 out of 10 times I'll be able to see all the way up that chimney to see if there's daylight, or if there's blockage. Now, if there's caps on the chimney, that makes it a little different story, but we still have light going all the way up. Now, I may not report on that, but at least I feel a little better about the inside of that chimney and what I feel its condition is. Cracks and leaks, even in the other reason why we want a liner is if any of this mortar fails in parts of the house that we can't see, if there was no liner, the smoke could leak out into the house. And then cracks up here can let water in. So these are all the kinds of things that we want to be able to report on if we see it. Now, what if you can't get to the top of this chimney because the pitch of the roof is too steep? You don't have a ladder to get up that high. You don't use a drone. I think you got to put your ladder as close to this chimney as you can and get the best shot of the flashing and the top of the chimney to try and determine what condition it's in. If it's really bad, you're going to see it. You're going to see chunks missing. I think you'll be able to tell, but minor cracks you might not be able to see.
If you see it, to add to that too, just this is just me from my experience. You know, you see it from the ground, you get up there or you get up to it, like you said. If I see moss growing out from some of the mortar joints or even from the crown, 9 out of 10 times when I get up there, it's cracked. Water's getting down in there and the moss is growing. So that's a good indicator too. And let's face it, every chimney for the most part, it's kind of, they never do anything, and they're pretty bad too. Just like efflorescence, could be moisture getting in through the crown and down through the bricks and deteriorating those bricks.
The other way to handle the limitation of inspection is in the report. I mean, if it's snowing, you can't get on the roof. You know, I know what I do on my reports is, you know, the inspection was from the ground, limited because of snow, ice, weather, and then you make the recommendation when conditions allow to have a proper inspection done.
Right, and I think that we need to be writing as much about what we can't do or see as we do on the defects of the home and the things that we can't see, just to protect 100%. Our butts. Insurance or not, insurance doesn't protect you 100%. Usually insurance is looking to make a deal to spend the least amount of money as possible. You don't even want to get that far.
Right.
So, you know, a lot of people rush through reports sometimes and forget to document these things to protect themselves. So got to take that time and get it done, especially on a chimney. Improper installation, chimneys that are not correctly installed or lack proper lining, Jim, can pose significant safety hazards. We're going to get to a little bit of installation by the book kind of thing in a minute with the crown and the cap thing, but it's been my experience being in the trades for a while and then doing home inspections that, in my opinion, you could throw the book away because very very few items are ever installed 100% by the book. And there's a bunch of reasons for it. Cost. So to me, if something's functional and 90% by the book, we're in pretty good shape. Damaged chimney crown is very important. So if we can't see what's up here, or it's not obvious that it's really bad, then this is where all the water comes into the house, into the structure, and also here. So those are two important things to keep maintained, and you have to stress that to your folks as well. And then if you find a chimney, now most of the time they're on the outside of the house, and there should be a footing when they're exterior, but structural instability, either from initial construction or from deterioration, that would be a significant defect, obviously. I've had chimneys where I can push them from the roof and they're moving. That shouldn't be. And
you can also see when a chimney is connected to the exterior of the house, caulking that's deteriorating, or gaps where the chimney may be leading or pulling away from the house also.
I prefer that, because then my job is done. Just get a chimney sweep in here and get it all fixed.
Stan, can we talk about 1 second? I don't know if you were going to go over this, but the 3-2-10 rule. Do you ever do that? That a chimney pipe must be 3 feet above the roof line, but also 2 feet taller than anything within 10 feet?
I don't measure, but if it's pretty obvious sometimes when the chimney's too short.
Or they put an addition on and no one's thinking about the chimney height.
Yeah. So yeah, if I see something I think doesn't really meet those parameters to a certain extent, I'll bring it to their attention. A lot of times you'll see a chimney that was raised because a couple more courses were put on, a couple more sections of liner were put on. So at least somebody was paying attention if they put an addition on. But that's a good question. I don't know if that was in here anyplace. But now you're getting into code again, and I think you got to be careful where you draw the line with stuff like that. The other thing too is if you see puffbacks on Fireplace or in the mechanical room, that's one of the things that happens when a chimney's too short, right? The wind blows the smoke back down the chimney momentarily. Right. So basically, you're looking for the same type of thing. We already discussed or Scott went into pretty good detail about what you're looking for inside the fireplace. Also on the outside, I rarely see a lot of deterioration on the hearth. More, I'm sorry, the mantle. More the hearth issues on the inside, or the firebox is deteriorated from a lot of fires and mortar breakdown, and that's kind of a no-brainer. You just tell them that they got to square all that up. The gaps that Scott was talking about between the face of the fireplace and the firebox up into the flue, those all should be sealed, because where could the soot and the creosote can go in all these things and become problems. So like Scott said, he sees a couple issues, then it's probably a good call to say, just get somebody in here to evaluate it. Back in the day, well, the days I'm talking about, it's 20, 25 years ago, they would get people in after the home inspection to evaluate and get a price. Until the contractors started realizing they weren't getting any jobs. They were just there to use their numbers. And as soon as they saw a real estate sign in front of the house, they just keep on driving. So that kind of stopped a while back, as far as realtors trying to get people prices for repairs. And along with that, the negotiations started to drop off on what you were finding.
Stan, can you talk a little bit? And I see it from time to time, and there's a couple different reasons. When you see a lot of soot or a lot of smoke on the outside of their bricks, you'll see a lot of soot on the top, up just below the mantle. You'll see quite a bit of it.
Here, like right here.
Yeah, yep. You'll see a lot of it. Sometimes people are burning like crazy, but from my experience, it could be an indication of a poor draft. I'm using my chimney, for example. I have to actually pop I'm going to put it's because it's 3 sides to the cold. A center chimney that's surrounded by the house usually has a better draft. My chimney's terrible, and I have to heat it up in order to get the fire burning. So I'll get a lot of smoke that comes in, and the top of the bricks will get they'll get a lot of soot on it. So it could be just an indication of a poor draft. Just something to make note.
Also, a high tree line close to the house where the wind blows over the trees,
Sometimes
momentarily
the cap,
pushes that smoke back.
sometimes the caps too, depending on you'll get that with the caps, whether it's the furnace side. You know, you can have
If
two
I see
fumes
any
in one.
soot, if I see any soot, I tell them that there's a possibility that you're having draft problems at certain times, and somebody should come in and check it out.
And even
Thanks.
the settling of the
Gosh.
hearth too, Stan. We see that from guys. I'm sure everybody here, you go there and the hearth has dropped. You see the separation. Sometimes just me, listen, it's one extra thing is you'll have that stone and you just kind of pick it up and it moves. And you know, it's not set in cement, or it's loosened up, or it's settled. Just something to point out. It's not the end of the world, but sometimes it is. Sometimes the floor has settled as well. And you know, I see that from time to time, and I point that out to the clients. Or
Right,
the
and
bricks pulling away from the wall, stones. You know, you go on the side and you see the big gap and the stone has pulled away. You know,
that's usually the wood framing underneath was just not substantial enough to hold that. That can be somewhat easily rectified. I think the most important thing, though, so far is that we identify as best we can the items that may prevent that chimney from working safely and properly. All that
right.
other stuff can be fixed unless the little kid steps on a raised hearth and the stone falls off and breaks his leg. Um, that's not quite the safety issue that you know a poorly functioning uh, chimney or fireplace would be. So safety precautions for inspectors. I don't really need to go over all this, but you know they use protective equipment. I don't think so. Um, Proper ventilation. You're not working on a fireplace. If you're using your ladder, obviously you want to secure it. I don't know how many of you guys strap your ladder to a gutter or have some way of ensuring that it's not going to move. I know I'm guilty of not doing that, but it's not a bad idea. They got these clamps now to hold your ladder in place. And they're saying that you should use flashlights, inspection camera, gas leak detectors. If you're cleaning, fireproof tarp and or drop cloth. Like I said, a lot of this is also related to chimney sweeps and maintenance.
Stan, could you just talk a little bit about the clean out downstairs? You know, you got a lot of times we'll have one
Yeah,
for the
I don't think
furnace
there's a picture of that. So
and
I
one for
remember I
the
told you I put my flashlight in there and try and take a picture whenever I can, but a lot of times I open those cleanouts and they're
right.
just completely plugged with debris, whether it's soot, leaves, twigs, birds, squirrels, filled up. Unfortunately, when I open it, some of it leaks out on the floor. So I'll take a picture of it. What does that tell you, though? That if that's a heating system chimney, that for to me that heating contractor is not doing his job, or her. I'll be fair. Um, they're not cleaning the base of that chimney out. So I had that happen in my house once. I had this guy come down, and it was like 6 o'clock at night. I was pissed that he was coming so late, and I was watching him because he was never at my house before, and he cleaned the furnace and left and didn't do the base of the chimney. So about 20 minutes later, I called a heating contractor and I told him, I said, your guy didn't clean the base of my chimney. I want him to come back. It's plugged. And he, not plugged, but he didn't clean it. And he came back and got all hissy with me and said, why didn't you tell me while I was here? And I said, well, why didn't you just do it? I said, maybe you'll learn a little bit of a lesson if I call you back here and complain to your boss. But you got to clean that out every time, or it's going to accumulate. And when Scott was working with me as a quasi intern, we were in Ansonia, Connecticut, and we were looking at the chimney and talking about um, what he should be looking at. And I leaned on the water heater, which was running, and I burned my arm. The smoke was coming out of the flue pipe. Um, the chimney was plug solid past that the highest
where the breach was.
breach
Yeah.
with soot or whatever was in there. the first floor was vacant. We went to the second floor. There was a young couple with a baby, and we asked them, have they been experiencing any kind of flu-like symptoms, headaches, nausea? And they said yes. So we told them to get out of the house. We called the fire department. They shut the street down, and that guy couldn't let those kids back in the house until he cleaned and lined the chimney. It was like a 1910 house. So the lack of maintenance, or maybe he thought that was getting cleaned as part of his maintenance, but those basic chimneys should be cleaned when you're servicing a heating system. So if you open that up and you see that, you got to put that in your report. So, you know, we're going over the same things here. Cracks in masonry, spalling or flaking bricks, that's a water problem. Deterioration of mortar joints could be bad mortar, or that would be all of it. If it's certain parts, it's probably water leaking through and into the chimney. Rust or corrosion on any of the metal parts. Settling or leaning, we talked about that. Flue damage where you can see it. You'll see a picture later of something that you can't miss. These are kind of vital things to look at as we're doing the inspection.
Stan, go back one. Go back. You missed number, no, the one you just did. Sorry.
Yeah, right, let me find my arrows.
Put the arrows the other way. You missed number 4, discoloration and staining, which is also efflorescence on the exterior of the chimney. That's a very important thing to do, because it's really caused by a lack of proper draw out of the chimney, and that chimney's holding moisture for a longer time.
More from best, right?
Yeah. So that's something that I never, I looked at it, I called it out a couple of times, but when you're aware of it, and that, we see efflorescence all the time in basements and stuff like that. And, it's easy for the inspector to just go, well, it's a little bit of efflorescence that can be cleaned up, but that can be a serious problem with proper venting of that flue. So,
all right. So Jim, that's a good point. So think about a high efficiency condensing style furnace or water heater. The reason why they don't need a masonry or metal chimney is because we're taking the extra heat that was going up the chimney, the heat loss, and putting it into the house. While we're doing that, we are taking the moisture out of the flue gas, right? So much that we need a condensate pump to take that moisture away. So if you have a regular gas-fired
natural draft,
if that flue gas isn't getting out fast enough, it will start to condense and create those problems. Yes. So if you see that efflorescence at the middle of an exterior chimney, it's probably a drafting issue.
And to your point, Stan, too, a lot of times you'll have an oil-fired furnace, oil-fired hot water heater like I had. And that flue gas is really hot. And then you get rid of your hot water heater or furnace and get a condensing furnace. So now you orphan, you orphan one of those. Instead of having 2 things in the chimney, two oil-fired gas, you have one. And then you can get condensation from that too. And also, if that crown, from my experience and from what I've been told by some really good contractors that do, it's a lot of times if that crown is warm, water can get down behind there. And then, just like water dries and the material or the minerals dry, and it's left on side of the stone or the brick. Now, I was told that the chimney can be sealed. Now, we see, just to point this out, I'm not I've always told that painting a chimney, and the chimneys, the brick, the stone should breathe. And what people do, I've seen them go up there with polyurethane. These guys that go, oh, we'll seal your chimney. They'll go up there with polyurethane and literally brush it on there. And if anybody's ever saw it, you see all that polyurethane start to break off. And you're like, what the hell is going on with this chimney? Or the paint when they paint it. So there's a chemical out there, and I don't know the name of it. I can certainly find out that they go up there and they can seal it, seals the bricks. And I'm looking to do it on mine, and it allows for them to breathe too. So that will help with a lot of those moisture issues on the outside, coming from the outside, getting through, absorbing into the brick, not necessarily what Jim and Stan was talking about before. Just something to point out.
Yeah, and we don't have to always identify the cause
correct
of something, but it's important to identify it and have somebody else come out and put their 2 cents in. So abandoned chimneys and flues. A lot of people think, you know what, I don't need that chimney or flue anymore, and they just forget about it. They need to be maintained. It's very, very important that we tell our clients that. So for instance, that top flue, they put a condensing style water heater and boiler in that house. So I guess they were more concerned about keeping birds and crap out with the chicken wire, but that flue is deteriorating, and it's a one chimney structure. So the rest of the chimney is fairly well maintained, but they still need to fix this and keep that water out, because the water is getting into the basement right now through that flue. So I told my clients, this was fairly recent, I added this, that they definitely, unless they plug the top up, which I really wouldn't do either, this needs to be repaired. This house on the bottom in East Lyme, they dug out the back of the crawl space and moved the heating system. So this chimney back here is now the active chimney. This is abandoned. And again, they need to take care of this chimney because it is an integral part of the house. Now the guy's going to come in and he's not going to flip it, but he's going to do a lot of work. And he needs a roof, I said, if you don't mind putting some siding on your house, you can get rid of this, but it's going to add some cost to your renovations. If you don't get rid of it, you got to maintain it. So it's important that we discuss that with clients as well, or they're going to create other problems in the house if they're not aware of that. So let me just go to, so people get these two, mostly lay people get these two terms mixed up, crown and cap. So the crown is the concrete or mortar at the top of the chimney that seals off the opening between the structure and the liner. The cap generally will sit on top of the flue to keep debris, animals, water out, stop wind from blowing down. These two are very often confused because they're both located at the top of the chimney, and a lot of people interchange the terms when they're speaking, but there's definitely a distinct difference. This is a little closer view. And, I mean, I still see stone periodically, but it could be any kind of cap on there. Mortar, crown, or wash. This is what, at least here in Connecticut for 35 years, I'm going to say 95% of the chimneys that I see have this kind of coved mortar wash on it, I call it. It's thin, it doesn't last long, it cracks, it deteriorates. Water wraps around the side and gets into this top course here, down here. So they're not the most effective way, but remember we were talking about by the book. This is not the way they used to teach you how to put a crown on a chimney. It should be like my chimney has precast crown, and my house is 1942 and it's in fantastic shape. So the Brick Institute of America, the chimney crown should extend up to a minimum of 2.5 inches beyond the chimney wall, and a drip edge should be provided at the bottom of the overhang part of the chimney. The thinnest part of the precast concrete crowns must be at least 2 inches. The crown should be made of concrete only, and mortar should not be used. Reinforcement is necessary in case of cast-in place concrete chimney crowns. The crown top should be sloped downwards from the flue liner towards its edge. The crown shouldn't touch the flue liner in any case, and sealant must be provided in between them. A bond break must be provided between the crown and the masonry chase to allow expansion and contraction of both materials, and a distance of 2 to 6 inches must be maintained between the top of the flue liner and the top of the chimney crown. The flue liner must be at a greater height than the chimney crown. So the bond break is this guy here, right? It's in between the concrete and the liner, because the liner is going to get hotter than the rest of the chimney. That liner is going to expand lengthwise a little bit, it's got to be able to move. If they're bonded together, sometimes you'll see cracks at the second or third layer of the chimney. This is a big chimney. Usually it's in a single one. That's because as this expands, it's pulling up the top of the chimney. So a lot of people just see the crack and say, oh, that's got to be sealed, but it could actually be that there's no bond break. So when I said throw out the book, how many times do you guys see cast in place crowns? I don't see them very often.
0.
It's just not, it's too expensive. It's too much work. And, you know, a lot of builders aren't going to be putting them in. But that's, if you want to go by the book, this is the recommended way to put a crown on a chimney. They also
How about Stan, how about spacing between flues?
I forgot what this space is.
I was told roughly a brick, you know,
right,
distance.
Because I see them a lot together, like 2 or 3 right next to each other, no space.
And
Well, what are you going to do about that? Tell somebody to rebuild their entire chimney? I mean, it's kind of hard to address. So then
don't yell at me.
No, I'm just saying that it's a tricky.
Yeah.
Then there's precast.
Can you go back to that one picture just real quick? I just want to point out something too, because I know everybody here, if they didn't, they'll see it. See the rebar or the wire mesh? Going back to like when Stan said in the beginning about staining, rust stains. Sometimes when these crowns, they get a crack in it, water gets in there, and that rebar and that wire mesh that's in there will rust. Sometimes it's from flue gases too, some of that staining, but sometimes you'll see rusting coming down, and it's one of these precasted ones with that wire in there. Or it could be the old rusted cap that stained. It was all rusted and stained too. So just something to point out. It's not the end of the world, but maybe that will tell you. A lot of times I'll see those, they're cracked, and you'll see the rusting come around if you get up there, or if you use your drone or you put the ladder up. Sometimes you can't see it. You'll see the staining though. And it'll be on the roof too sometimes. Oh, I think it was the other one. No.
We kind of talked about what they require for so right, they all have a pitch, right? So water sheds off, and then they're supposed to be farther, and you can build a drip edge with the brick as well, but they're supposed to extend far enough away from the chimney so that when the water drips off, it's not running down the chimney. If you have a mortar wash, where's that water going? Right down the chimney. So there's a method to the madness. It's just, if I see a half dozen of these a year, I'm surprised. So the sealing of the crown becomes less effective over time. Poor construction will break it down faster. Ground shifts, shrinkage of concrete, all these things have an effect. Temperature, expansion, contraction, all those things work on anything outside. The chimney can take a certain amount of that, but eventually it's going to start breaking down. And again, we talked before, people aren't paying attention until a brick winds up on the ground or water's leaking into their house, and then they got a problem. Noticing signs of damage, you need to repair it as soon as possible to avoid serious damage. We just talked about that. The repair depends on the type and extent of damage and the type of chimney crown installed. The cement, you could probably seal, but the mortar wash is probably going to have to be replaced. And most guys are going to come out and they're not going to put a crown on your chimney if you have a wash. If they try and get you to do it, there's an expense there, and you're probably going to go just do what was up there. So this is kind of exaggerated of moisture coming in through either the flashing or the chimney, but these are the things that we want to look at around the chimney, especially when it's in living space like this. But how could it get this bad without anybody doing anything about it? I don't know, but I've been in houses like that. So, you just shake your head sometimes. this picture has nothing to do with the metal. It's just talking about drafting, damper functionality. We talked about all that. Clearances for where chimneys go through, insulation in houses, and it depends on if it's metal or if it's a double wall and all that stuff. But we can talk about that in a later presentation. Indoor air quality can be affected by poorly operating chimneys and fireplaces. And they say consult an HVAC contractor. Well, depends on if it's a mechanical issue that's causing chimney problems or if it's the actual chimney itself. But if it's the chimney structure or fireplace, I would say that you're best off getting a chimney sweep. I used to tell people to get a certified chimney sweep because they were more like us. They have to get continuing ed. They're abreast of all the current issues going on and materials. We should be recommending regular chimney cleaning. And you know what? You can parlay that with an inspection, and tell them, look, you're going to have your chimney cleaning, you should do that. If you're a fireplace and you're using it a lot, you want to do it yearly, every other year. But at the same time, the guys here, let them check all the components of the chimney and fireplace. And, some people are on top of things and some people don't really care. Part of all that maintenance would be to check the flue and damper and make any necessary masonry repairs. If there's any problems with blockage in the chimney, it should be cleared. If there's clearance issues with the smoke pipe or chimney and any combustible materials, they could be addressed at that time. We should be, and I think we are anyways, at least in Connecticut and most other states, if we're not finding the proper amount of safety devices, as we call them in Connecticut now, we should be recommending carbon monoxide detectors and smoke detectors, and then professional repairs and upkeep, and not Uncle Joe coming to fix things for you. So to maintain a safe environment, homeowners should follow essential fireplace and chimney safety tips. You can include them in your report or comment on them. Using the fireplace screen, keeping flammable materials away, and using dry and seasoned firewood. I do that as a conversation. I don't really write it in my report. Regularly checking smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, having fire extinguishers. I think a lot of people make those recommendations anyways as standard safety. And then, it is important, in my opinion, no matter what component we are talking about, that you have a professional come in. And, like Scott said before, we are, we know a little bit about everything, but I would never profess to be. I'm an expert home inspector. I'm not an expert electrician, plumber, carpenter, roofer, mason. So I would always tell them, no matter what I say and what I tell you in this report, it's, repairs should be made by a professional. Follow up, assess the cost and scope of the repair, and have it done. And this way you got somebody to fall back on if something goes wrong with that repair.
Stan, do you ever recommend a level 2 inspection, or you just say evaluation by a licensed or by a chimney company?
I just say get a qualified, certified chimney contractor.
Okay.
Let them make the determination.
Okay.
I mean, some guys do it. One thing, Stan, if you could just go over clean outs. A lot of times when we're downstairs, or the lack of, or sometimes somebody put a water heater in. And
well, what do you want?
Like, a lot of times I'll look, is it there, not there? Sometimes it's buried behind a wall. A lot of people do illegal, they'll renovate, they'll put a wall up or a water heater. And some of them are not there.
Sometimes you don't see them.
Yeah,
right. So
I
learned to call those years ago a dead base chimney. No clean out. So now you got to take, if it's just for a heating system or water heater, you got to take the smoke pipe apart, drop your vacuum hose in there and clean it. I always recommend putting a clean out. I don't know how often that gets done, but that just, there's dedicated heating guys that will clean that the base of that chimney no matter what they got to do. And then there's other guys that if you have 5 calls and you don't clean the base of the chimneys, then you can go and, you know, have a coffee and play with your phone someplace.
Stan, we have a question.
Yes.
If a home has a ceramic lined chimney, should we recommend metal liner for gas furnace? Also, gas water heater widowed into a large flue, should it now get a smaller lining?
So
That one I can help you.
line.
That one, yeah, that one, yes, because the original liner was probably spec'd for a heating system that's been removed, and now they're putting that water heater in there. So most likely it does need something to be evaluated or smaller. But as for the ceramic
let me
line,
be devil's advocate with that.
okay.
So what I have found when in some of those situations is that there's always dampness in the base of the chimney because the flue gas isn't getting out. It's in the flue's too big, and the little water heater is just not, it's not getting out. Usually there's dampness, efflorescence at the base of the chimney. But think about this though. In the summertime, that water heater is working by itself, right? In that same chimney, right? Furnace isn't on, so it doesn't always mean that that water heater is not going to function properly, especially if it's an indoor chimney. If it's an exterior chimney, it might be a big difference. But I will beat that up a little bit if I see evidence of moisture. Like somebody had water coming in their basement around the chimney. They fixed the grating outside. They did everything they could, and it's still. So I just opened the base of the chimney and looked inside there, and the water was inside the chimney. All right, and there's a cap on the chimney, and they took out the heating system, and they only had the water heater on that. So in that case, it looked pretty obvious that it was the orphan water heater. Now, ceramic lined chimney, I'm not. I don't know if I've ever seen that. Are you talking about? It's actually ceramic.
Yeah. Well, from what I just looked up, it says that it should be upgraded to a metal liner.
For corrosive purposes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Safety and corrosive.
Even with a clay liner, terracotta liner, you know.
Yeah.
They're all going to corrode if you're not getting rid. Especially, you know, one thing that's not in here. If you go from oil to gas, you're supposed to thoroughly clean that chimney because the byproduct of oil and gas, if you're mixing it, can create an acid that will deteriorate the inside of that liner. And I find houses that are, you know, oil-fired heating system with a gas-fired boiler, water heater, and, you know, specks of the liner in the base of the chimney. So that's it's not advised, even though I see it quite often. That they should be separated, or a metal liner put in to handle both of them.
Stan, on your experience, and I know we're winding down, how many flue pipes is too many in a chimney? You know, I mean, we've gone to these
You have to size that. No, I mean,
we go to a multifamily and you see 4 or 5.
I know that's the
gas,
who puts those things in? The gas company.
Yeah.
Right. So you got a 3-family with 6 flues on one chimney, which is not oversized at all. But again, it's just like
with no liner.
And no liner, right? And then the gas company walks away. So, I mean, you bring it up, and you at least want a carbon monoxide detector in the basement. But again, how we write it down, but we don't know what happens after we issue that report. That's all we can do is write down a recommendation.
Right. We don't do that math for proper draft, proper sizing of flues. And I can tell you in my reports, they always read to get an inspection of the flues and the capacity to make sure there's proper draft by a licensed professional. This way it just covers you.
So just for me, my buyer is not number one. I am. Everything I write in that report is covered my ass. They benefit from it.
Right.
I'm not going to overstep, and I'm not going to understep. I'm going to try and be right there with my recommendations. They have to follow up on them, whether they get compensation or get the owner to do it, or they do it themselves when they move in. And that's what that report's all about. So when they have an issue and you go get that report, you can comfortably say, did you do this? Did you do that? Because you wrote it. You got pictures of it now. So
Do we have any other questions? It is 8 o'clock. No one's typing.
I have
Anything
one
else,
question.
Stan? Oh, go ahead.
I did an inspection a couple years ago where up in the attic, there was 2 feet of the chimney missing. The deck was charred. I told the buyer and the seller, it needed to be fixed. Well, neither one of them did anything. 2 years later, the guy who bought the place never fixed it, and the hole was still in the chimney. Should I have reported that to the town? I've noted in my report that it needed to be repaired because it's a fire hazard, safety hazard, and there's probably carbon monoxide pouring into the attic.
that's nuts. So it was an
Yeah.
active chimney.
Active chimney. It was a 4-family home. I think there was, a couple of boilers, a couple of hot water heaters going into it, and the deck was actually charred.
And no bodies piled up anyplace.
No bodies at that point, not in 2 years. And of course, it was down in Britain, and the guy was a slumlord.
That's
It's
incredible.
Well,
I
look at
probably
it.
should have
We
called
called
the
the
town
fire
fire
department.
marshal. That's what I should have done.
We called the fire department on our issue, and there was a time that Stan helped me out on that commercial building where the floor was, it was grossly defected. There was an engineer report saying that an imminent collapse, and below it, they were doing x-rays with those big lead shields in the machine, and people were getting x-rays. And I ended up saying to Stan, so I called the building department, and they wanted to go after me. But you know what? And even in our standards, I mean, you have your contracts with your client, but if there's a chance that somebody could get seriously injured, I'm going to speak up, and we did twice. So, if you
I gotta sleep at night.
if you feel something bad, I mean, what the hell? No, I don't think anybody in a court of law is going to go after you for doing the right thing.
No.
Maybe you save life.
Yeah, I should have probably called somebody else other than just writing in my report.
Did the homeowner know? Before the guy that bought it, did he know
Yeah.
about it? Because I'll say stuff to tell him to say the homeowner, this is bad. Water and electrical panel, like literally coming through the meter, and it's filled up. I mean, you got to say something,
Okay.
I would. I mean, what the heck? It's the right thing.
I'm just amazed that nobody got ill and created an
I'm
issue
surprised
there.
the place didn't burn down.
Yeah.
Well,
That's just amazing to me.
These people had their windows open. They were leaving them open because they were getting headaches.
Yeah, imagine that.
Dial 911.
Wow.
And I had another one where a boiler was a direct vent, metal direct vent out through the foundation. I heard a rattling, couldn't figure it out. And I went back 2 days later to pick up my radon test, and I heard the rattling again. And I touched the flue pipe going out, and the flue pipe fell off the boiler. So I had called the selling agent, the buying agent. I said, somebody's got to fix it tonight before somebody dies. It was kind of baffling where
if we miss anything like that, it could always come back to us. And that's where you have to really define. That's where the standards may come in play to a certain extent, but it's just best to be diligent and try and with those types of things, just report on the things that you feel are unsafe or health issues. That's very important. I'd rather see you miss a couple cracks in brick and some deteriorated mortar than to miss something like that, because that could be a big issue.
Yeah. So I sent out an email and letters to both agents that night when I got home that it needed to be fixed tonight, or they got to turn the boiler off. All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
You did the right thing.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you, Stan. Thank you for everybody attending.
Thanks, guys.
We've got February 20th is mastering plumbing inspection, and we'll see everybody then. Thank you.
All right, take care, gentlemen.
Have a good one.